Mogul Motivation, educating and empowering entrepreneurs 1 week at a time. Presented by True Stories Media. And I am your host, Antoine Twiz Taylor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mogul Motivation. Welcome back. I'm happy that you are here. If this is your first time listening, this podcast is for the aspiring entrepreneur who is trying to get over that hump and make things happen. This podcast is for anybody with a dream who wants to go forward and accomplish that dream. This week's Monday conversation, I'm sitting down with Nija Matory. She is an authorpreneur from Dallas, Texas, and she just recently published her third book. Nija, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Likewise. Thank you for sitting down. So, Nija, let's start at the beginning. When did you fall in love with writing and why?
I've been writing since second grade. I remember in our class we had a project where we had to do some type of science project about nature, and everybody went with the typical, poster boards. And so I decided to put together an interactive book of stuff about nature, and I put leaves and stuff in it, but I wrote a story as well. Mm-hmm. And my teacher was so impressed that she took it to the principal, and he was really excited. I'm just I don't get it, it's just a book. But he basically laminated the book and then he bound it so that I could keep it forever. And I was just wow, okay, these adults are impressed by what I did. Mm-hmm. They're it just took off.
So, do you still have that book today?
I do, but it's at my parents' house in Jackson. I've moved, and I don't take it with me. Until I get into a house where I can put up everything from my childhood, It stays at the parents' house.
Absolutely, no doubt. So that's how the seed for writing started. I used to write a lot myself. When I was a kid, I used to write short stories a lot because I used to love to read books. Has anybody in your family ever published a book or, put a large emphasis on reading or, anything like that?
We don't have any other published authors, but my family actually started from a conversation about a book. My mom and dad were at a laundromat, and they both waiting on their laundry, and they both reading a book. Mm-hmm. So my daddy decided to, shoot his shot. He's like, okay, I see, she reading the book, I'm reading the book, so, I'm going to go and get up in there. And that's how they started dating, from talking about a book at the laundromat. So reading and literacy has always been important in my family. Wow. All of my siblings, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, everybody reads. I mean, that's just something we enjoy doing. So it's always been a part of my life.
Wow, so reading actually kind of created you in a way,
basically
the passion for reading. So, so your first story that you wrote, you was a kid in school. What about throughout high school and college? Did you ever envision yourself becoming a published author? At what point did you make that decision?
I would say in middle school and high school, I wanted to be an author. But my problem was I kept hitting a lot of writer's block, mainly because I have anxiety. So I would start on a story and I wouldn't finish it because another idea for another story would pop up. So then I would start on that. And so from middle school to high school, I had a binder full of short stories, and I called it Unfinished Chapters. And it was just passed around the school. People would check the binder in and out with me so they could read it or whatever, and then they put in notes about which story they wanted me to finish. And for so long I could not finish a story, and I don't know why, but I just couldn't get anything to come together. And then after undergrad, it was just it's time to get on this and make it right. And I was able to finish a story finally, and that's where my first book came from.
Okay, and I'm so glad that you mentioned writer's block, because that's kind of one of the biggest, that's one of the most scariest things about writing a book and writing stories. How do you overcome writer's block? What are some tips that you recommend other authors use to get over that, and how did you get over that personally?
Honestly, I would just say be patient and keep writing. It's best to try to write something every day, even if it's just one sentence or a quote that you just thought of in your head, like save it for later, because you never know when it's going to come into use, or when you're going to create a story and a character that speaks that way. You can go back to when you wrote down that quote and like, okay, that's what I needed this for. Like, everything that you write has a purpose. It just didn't have a purpose when you wrote it. So it's best to keep writing. Just keep writing. And you don't have to necessarily finish the story that you start on. You never know, like multiple storylines that you started on may come together to create one storyline.
Yeah.
So that's the best way to get over it, in my opinion.
So basically, it's kind of like, because when you write, you're using your brain to write, so essentially what I got from what you just said is we have to work out every day. Like if you want to get in shape and stay in shape, you have to work out constantly, continuously, right? So if you want to get over writer's block, you have to constantly put your creative juices to work, and like you say, even if it's a sentence, you just got to do something so that, you can condition your mind to, unlock those ideas and creative juices that you really have, hidden deep inside you.
Right. That's the gist of it. Like, it's okay if you need to take, mental breaks, or you get frustrated and you just think it's not working out. Okay, take a couple of days. But eventually you need to come back to it. I keep a notebook in my purse, and whenever something comes to my mind, I'm writing it down. And even if I'm not near that notebook, I keep a sticky pad with me. I write it down on the sticky note, and then I go put it in a notebook later. Like, at this point in my life, everything is a gem. Everything has meaning. So just save it. You never know when you're going to need it.
That's beautiful. So you got over the writer's block and you said enough was enough and you was going to move forward and publish your first book. Can you tell us about that process? Number one, what the book was about, and number two, how did you go about getting that book published?
So my focus as an author and a woman of color is to talk about stuff that happens in the African American community, or reflects, our lives and our experience. I like to talk about taboo subjects because I feel like our children are our future, and they deserve to know, like, our wrongs and our rights.
Yeah.
They need to know, what we didn't succeed in and what we did succeed in, and what problems we do have and how we overcome those issues. So my first novel, Taste of Insanity, is about mental illness in the African American community, but it's particularly amongst women. But it's a fiction story.
Okay.
That story came to me one night. I had a dream, and I woke up and I just started writing. And I was just like, thank you, God, for finally putting these pieces together for me. Because it started from stories that I had been writing during writer's block. Wow. And he finally, put all those storylines together for me. So I completed the manuscript, and I was like, okay, now what do I do next? I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. What do I do with this manuscript? So I just started doing research about basically the publishing industry, and it's changing so much. Like, every day it literally changes.
Yeah.
Where, initially there were opportunities like left and right. If you wanted to publish a book, there was always an agent or a publisher that you could query. But now, technology has taken over everything. People aren't as interested in books, not holding a book. They rather read it on their phone or their Kindle. People buy their way onto the New York Times bestsellers list and stuff like that. Nothing is as organic as it used to be.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, my option would be either to go with an independent publisher or self-publish. And I knew I wasn't ready to self-publish. I knew I wasn't ready to take on everything that came with that. So I queried a couple of independent publishers, and two of them showed interest. And I decided to go with one of them, and everything just took off from there. And I used everything that I learned from that experience of being a signed author when it was time to finally self-publish my own book.
And what year was this?
This was 2013.
2013, and we published your first book. And the whole getting signed to a publisher, can you explain that process in a little bit more detail? So is it kind of similar to basically an artist being signed to a record label. Can you explain it to some of the audience out there?
I would say in a way, and then no, it's not as glamorous. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. Like you have to do a lot of footwork. Just like artists do. But as an author, like our industry is dying basically, and it's changing a lot. But artists are gonna always have an outlet. Like you can go on iTunes and download a song, they still gonna get paid for that streaming. So it's not the same, but I don't know. A lot of people, if you go into it with the mindset that it's about money, then you don't need to be trying to publish a book or getting signed to, a publishing label, because it doesn't work like that. It's not about the money. If anything, it's more so about exposure and building your brand.
Okay.
So that when the time comes, like, you have that resume to say, I've done this, this, and this. So people can take you more seriously and, offer you projects and, help you to the next level.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you mentioned that as well. I feel like a lot of authors think that they're going to become, Stephen King, or George R.R. Martin, overnight. You know what I'm saying? Or like a Eric Jerome Dickey overnight, and it's not going to happen like that. You have to put in a lot of work. And like you said, it's unfortunate, but the reality is a lot of people don't read anymore. It's still a lot of people that do read. Don't get me wrong. There's millions of people that still read, but it's still not as much as it used to be because, like you said, of the evolution of technology, especially with video on demand. And, everybody wants things instant right now. No one really has the attention span, unfortunately, to sit down, crack open a book, and have that discipline to read that book from cover to cover. It's real unfortunate. Who are some authors that inspire you to keep your creative juices going?
I'm more so into older authors, probably people that kids nowadays wouldn't even know who they are. I was an English major, so I'm really, really into literature. Okay. I love Alice Walker, Langston Hughes, Emily Dickinson, Mark Twain, William Faulkner. Toni Morrison is like one of my ultimate faves. Like, I'm really into literature. And then more so into, when it comes to African American lit, like coming up, I really love Eric Jerome Dickey, Omar Tari, Carl Weber, and I did like Michael Baston until he got a radio show, and I realized like who he really was. Now I'm not really digging him. But I'm into a lot of literature, pretty much. Like Zora Neale Hurston, I could go on forever.
Right. If it was one book that you had to pick that was like your favorite, what would you say?
Probably The Color Purple. Because I learned something every time I read the book. It's kind of like watching Harry Potter a million times, and you see something new every time that you didn't see the last time because there's so much going on. That's how I feel about The Color Purple.
I actually never have read the book, The Color Purple. Of course, I've seen the movie, but I actually never read the book.
See, you got to read the book.
Yeah, I got to add that to my to-do list. So, you released Taste of Insanity in 2013. When did you publish your second book?
The same year.
Same year, okay. And what was the title of that, and what was that one about?
That title is like SHHH, like Be Quiet, Telling a Secret. So that novel is about secrets and generational curses. Everybody knows in the Black family, they holler out, what happens in this house stays in this house. And sometimes we carry on those secrets within, to the next generation, and we create these curses and, just how to break that cycle.
Yeah. Based off the description of both your early books, your first two books, and, although you did say that your mission as an author is to, talk about the things in the Black community that, make people uncomfortable, just even based off your descriptions, it kind of reaffirms that you like to go deep into, subjects that people don't want to talk about, like the elephant in the room. And I
Right.
think that's very powerful as an author, as any type of creative person, because that's kind of like our job in a way. We have to, do our duty and tell the truth about reality. You released two books in 2013, right?
Yeah.
What is your process when it comes down to like starting your story? So you said that Taste of Insanity was inspired by the unfinished chapters, that notebook that you had in high school. So when you sit down and you decide that you're gonna write a book, what's your process? Like, can you help us out about that and help give us some tips for some authors out there that's struggling on how to get started?
Of course. So I usually write down what I want my book to be about. I write the back cover synopsis first, so that I have a general idea of what I want the novel to be about, and then I do a manuscript. Well, I'm sorry, an outline, but it's basically a sentence for every chapter, and I can literally write a chapter just off that one sentence that tells me what I want that chapter to be about. And then I set goals for myself as far as word count, because I typically shoot for 70 to 75,000 words.
Okay.
And I try to write 1,500 words a day whenever I'm writing. And then I try to write, 3 to 5 times a week. So different things work for different people. I mean, if anything, get the gist of the story out on paper first, because you need to know what it is you're trying to write. And then you need to know what it is that you really want to touch on, like what's important to you that be in this book. So I mean, that's what works best for me. It might not work for others. I don't recommend like starting off trying to shoot 1,500 words, because I don't want anybody to like overdo it. But start off small. Try to do 500 words a day, and then eventually you'll be writing probably 1,500 words or more. Sometimes I write more. So it just depends on the person.
On average, how long is 1,500 words? Like, if you had to estimate, like, how long is that?
If I have no interruptions, I can do that in an hour, hour and a half. So it takes no, like if I have no interruptions, I got my music going, I got some water and something to snack on, like I'm good. I can sit and write for hours and I'm straight. Like I could probably knock out 5,000 words, but it just depends on the person.
What would you say is most important, story or character?
The characters make the story.
Okay.
So it's important that you develop characters that people can relate to, because without, characters that people can relate to, I don't want to read this story. Like, I don't care what's going on in their lives.
How do we develop a character?
How do you develop characters?
Yes, how do we develop a character?
You pull from your reality.
Okay.
You run across people every day, different types of people from different backgrounds, or people that you dealt with in your past, friends, family. Just pull little characteristics from these people and create this character.
Yeah, I mean, it's that simple. I'm writing a novel, and that's what I do. But I've heard that debate a lot before. Like some say story is more important. Some say character is more important. Like I have a book titled Story, and basically, the whole gist of the book is saying that the story is what drives the novel, not the characters. So, I just wanted to get your opinion on, that never ending debate. 2013 to 2018, 5 years have passed since your second book and your third book, right? Can you tell us about what you learned throughout that hiatus, and what ultimately brought you back to your third book, which is Running from Color?
So I relocated from Jackson, Mississippi, where I'm originally from, to Dallas. After I dropped my second book, my tunnel vision was on, and it was just focusing on relocating, because at that point it was just like, okay, I gotta get out of my hometown and experience life. and get into a place where I can write and probably do something, out in the art community. Because, I mean, there are things to do in Jackson, and there's an art scene there, but I felt like I had conquered that scene. So I was like, it's time to move on. Mm-hmm. So I relocated to Dallas, and it took me about a year to get settled to, a place where I could finally be like, okay, let me start writing the outline for this book so I can, get to working on it. But in the midst of that, I got to do a lot of research because, like I said, the industry is changing. Literally every day something changes. And so, and while I was not, necessarily writing and adjusting to, my relocation or whatever, I basically kept up to date with what was going on so that when it was time for me to, promote or finish my manuscript, I knew what I wanted to do with it. Because, like, my first book, when I finished my manuscript, I didn't know what to do next. I was just like, okay, what do I go from here?
Yeah.
But by the time I got to my third book, I had a better idea of, what platforms were out there and what people wanted, and, better context as far as, like book cover design and stuff like that. So,
So tell us about your third book, Running from Color. What was the inspiration and what is it about?
So, Running from Color is a story set in the late 1920s, and it is about colorism, which is another issue we deal with in the African American community. Not just our community, but a lot of communities of color deal with colorism. The story was inspired by situations that I've been in with my mother as a child, and throughout, my life, basically. I am very, very fair-skinned, and my mother is very, very dark-skinned. And so sometimes we would be out in public, and I would see friends from school, and not necessarily like friends that you hung with outside of school, but I would see them and they're just like, why is that black lady, following you like you gonna steal something out the store?
Wow.
And I'm just like, that's my mama. Like,
wow.
I would get comments like that, or people would see, Mama, your daddy must be white. It's like, no, like, my daddy's light skinned, he's not white. Or you must be adopted. So that really prompted me to write Running from Color, because I know it's something that our community deals with, and I've been really interested in colorism since dealing with that. When I was in grad school, that was going to be a subject of my thesis before I was basically became a college dropout.
Yeah,
if you would say.
Wow, it's, even though we know that it happens still in 2018, it's crazy to, that still happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just wild that, especially black people still think that way.
Right.
Like, I'm light skinned myself, and my mother was dark skinned. It's the same exact scenario as you. My mother was dark skinned, my father was light skinned, and I came out light skinned. That doesn't mean that a white man, that my father is white or anything like that. But it's insane that we still have black people who believe that in 2018.
Right, and it's crazy because now Matthew Knowles is speaking on it, and one of the cast members from Love and Hip Hop, who is Afro-Latina, is speaking on it. And it's crazy because nobody has ever known the Love and Hip Hop franchise to be something that, is associated with anything positive. And I really think that her using that platform to shine a light on colorism, especially in the Afro-Latino community, is like really important. So I appreciate her for doing that. And Matthew Knowles, I can't believe he's speaking on it, but he's basically said, like, if my children weren't light skinned, they wouldn't be as successful as they are, which is true. Like, that's what our society has come to, because that's what colorism is. You're likening success with, something that's close to whiter skin because of white privilege. So it's an important subject.
Yeah, very important. And it's all throughout our history. Light skinned black Americans in the early 1900s, could pass for being white.
Right.
Greek organizations, will have the paper bag test, and then, even now in modern day media, contemporary media, you still see it. Like if you'll see two black women who are best friends, right? One light skin, one dark skin. The dark skin one is always the roughneck, or the less attractive one, quote
Or
unquote.
she's angry.
Yeah, angry. Like the most common example could be Gina and Pam from Martin. Gina was always
That's a prime example.
Yeah, prime example. Gina was always the stylish one. Pam was always, the angry, the one with the attitude, the roughneck. School days, the jigaboos, and the gamma rays. It goes on and on. It's crazy that people still fall into that trap and believe it though. But I don't know, man. I'm glad that you actually tackled that issue with your novel. And you released the novel February 1st, correct?
I did.
February 1st, you released Running from Color. Can you tell us about? You mentioned platforms, like you stayed in tune and researched the new platforms. Can you tell us about some platforms for authors to self-publish their novel right now?
So everybody is familiar with platforms like GoFundMe and Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
Those are decent platforms if you want to use that, you can. But if you want to use something that's specifically for authors, there are platforms out there like Kickstarter and GoFundMe that is just for connecting publishers with authors or authors with readers.
Okay.
So I used Publishizer with a Z, not an S. And basically, it lets you create a pre-order campaign, and you put together this proposal for your book. Your book doesn't have to be finished yet. It could actually just be an idea, and you need the money to start, writing the book or hiring an editor, things like that.
Yeah.
But it allows you to do a 30-day pre-order campaign, and you sell as many pre-orders that you can. And at the end of your campaign, publishers query you to see if you want to publish through them, or you have the option to cash out and self-publish.
Okay.
And so I thought that would be the best way, the best route for me, because I really wanted Running from Color to be all me. I wanted to be able to say, like, look, this is something that I did, and I'm proud of it, because the subject is really near and dear to my heart. So I chose to do Publishizer, but there are other platforms out there. I just didn't see Kickstarter and GoFundMe like benefiting me. It looked better coming from a platform that actually connects publishers and readers and authors.
Okay. And Publishizers, they take a fee, I assume, off of however much money you accumulate?
Yeah, I can't remember the percentage exactly, but it's very small, and that percentage is just to help like fund the website as far as like keeping it afloat.
Okay. So after that, what are some other things that authors need to do before they get to publishers? So of course you have to have your manuscript edited, correct? What do you suggest about that? Like how many rounds of editing do they need to do? What type of editors do they need? Etc.
It depends on your budget and your story.
Okay.
I opted for line editing for my book, but a lot of different people have different packages. So it really depends on what your book needs. Like if you know your weak point is grammar, then you need to opt for a package that focuses on that.
Okay.
If you don't know how to properly like format, how to properly use punctuation marks and apostrophes and stuff like that, like you need to opt for the package that will touch on that. But it all depends on your budget. But at the end of the day, there needs to be some type of editing of your manuscript. That is the most important investment you're going to make when it comes to your book.
Okay. Editing. So editing is definitely, crucial, which we will assume it is. You have to have that book edited. You can't just throw anything out there.
Right.
So after you have your manuscript edited, then what's next?
You can get it formatted after you have it edited. You can format it yourself. You can pay someone. I pay somebody because I just don't like dealing with the logistics. I'm more so like, let me write the story and then let me get it edited and then let me, approve the edits and then let me just give it off to somebody else so they can format it and make it look nice or whatever. Because I just don't like getting into all that. And the next important thing I would say is the book cover. Book covers are very important to me. Honestly, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but that's a lie. Everybody does it. I'm an author and a reader, and I do it. If the book cover ain't slamming, I ain't trying to read the book. Mm-hmm. So I really invested in my book cover this go round. Okay. The first 2 books, my publisher picked the book covers, but this time I picked it. Some people like to go for $50 book covers. More so like...
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. So I invested money into my book cover, and I'm proud of the way it turned out. And the company I worked with, they were really great. But again, like, it's all based on what you want. But at the end of the day, like, the final product is a reflection of you. So I say let those $50 book covers go.
Yeah, you get what you pay for, man. And if you really gonna create something, you have to invest in it if you want people to take you serious.
Exactly.
So what are some tips that you recommend authors to market their book? When should they start marketing their book? And does the marketing stop after you publish it? How do we market a book once we're ready to, go ahead and publish it?
Your marketing of your book is a continuous process. Like, you're never done marketing your book. If you are a people person and you're like an extrovert and you really like approaching people or talking to people, if you're on the elevator with somebody, you see them read a newspaper, that's a good time for you to step in and spark a conversation with them and talk about your book. I mean, if you are sitting in Starbucks and you see other people reading, like, that's a good time to just insert yourself and plug yourself. But if you're an introvert like me, mm-hmm. book ads and word of mouth with family and friends. My family and friends do a lot of promoting for me.
Okay, word of mouth.
Promo. That's my promo team. Mm-hmm. But I'm also big on book trailers. I think giving people a visual of what's to come is a really big deal because I'm a visual person. Yeah. I like to see things. So, for instance, I've never read a Harry Potter book in my life, but I love the movies because by the time I found out that they were actually books, the movies had already started coming out. So, for me, one day I eventually plan to read Harry Potter. It's on my list, but every Harry Potter weekend, I'm sitting in my room glued to my bed watching those movies. Yeah. So I think visuals are really important. So I'm really big on book trailers. And then just submit your book to competitions and different award panels to, get that exposure out there.
Book trailers, word of mouth, submitting to contests and things like that. What are some ways to self-publish? So CreateSpace is the most popular, right? And that's the platform that you use, correct?
Yes, CreateSpace is very popular, but recently, and when I say recent, I mean like maybe just last week, CreateSpace eliminated a lot of their services because Amazon is all about, the bigger picture. They have gotten rid of their formatting services, their editing services, their book cover service. They've gotten rid of everything. And Kindle Direct Publishing as well. Like, they don't have those services anymore either. So you can still publish through CreateSpace and Kindle Direct Publishing. But as far as those other services that they used to provide, you're going to have to go elsewhere for those. There are some other publishers, print on demand, Ingram and Baker and Taylor. And there's, Book Baby is a newer one. Okay. But now at this point, like I said, like, the industry is changing every day. Like, Amazon was just like, we could invest this money somewhere else. So they took away those services. So, it's a lot out there. You just have to search for it.
Wow. So you can still publish. You just have to do all of the extra things on your own. Basically, find people.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Your manuscript needs to be edited and formatted before you submit it to them for printing.
What do you see yourself in the next 3, 5, 10 years as an author? Like, what are your ultimate goals, um, as far as writing and things of that nature?
As far as writing, I'm ready to get behind the camera. Actually, like,
Okay.
I want to write scripts. I want to get into producing. I'm really thinking about moving to Atlanta in the next couple of years because it's basically Black Hollywood right now. I remember post Katrina, like New Orleans was a spot to shoot everything, and now everything has shifted to Atlanta. I really want to write some scripts for some TV shows and get into film and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next step, like the next goal that I'm trying to achieve.
Okay. And basically, your books are gonna segue you into that realm, and it's happened so many times. You just mentioned Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling. Although she didn't write those scripts for Harry Potter, I believe she had creative control over
She
the
did.
scripts for Harry Potter. Yeah, and it happens every day. Books are being licensed into movies, but authors are transitioning to writing scripts and producing. So that's an amazing goal. Let me ask you this: what motivates you to do this? So what motivates you to continue to write and continue to produce content that addresses issues in the Black community?
It's my therapy, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that's the purpose God set for me, and I'm not going to deter from it at all because I feel good when I'm writing. I'm in a good mood. It's cleansing, and it feels good to hear other people say like something you wrote touched me, or I could relate to that. So it's therapy.
Therapy. That's deep, and that's real. That's some real talk right there. Some people say they love cooking because it's therapeutic. You love writing because it's therapeutic. We have to do what keeps us sane and keep us happy in this
Right.
crazy world. So can you tell us about Running from Color? Where can people purchase it? The details. Things like that.
So Running from Color is available on Amazon. You just type in Running from Color, and it'll pull up, or you can type in my name, Morenike. That's Morenike. And since I did create space, it's only available on Amazon right now. I selected an option to be exclusive through them. I'm going to do a second edition where it allows me to like distribute to libraries and things like that. So that's something that I'm working on. But right now, it's available on Amazon.
Okay. And what is one last piece of advice you can give to all the aspiring authors out there who, they're trying to get over that writer's block, they're trying to really get this book published? I'm one of them. I've been trying to finish my novel for a minute. What is one last piece of advice you can give us?
Just keep writing. You got to exercise your brain every day. And if you don't do that, then you have nothing. Like you basically throwing in the towel. If you don't let your writer's block defeat you, then you never were meant to write to begin with. Like, just keep writing. It doesn't matter if it doesn't mean anything right now. If it doesn't have a purpose now, it's going to have a purpose later. You're going to use whatever it is you wrote down yesterday sometime in the future. Just keep writing.
Just keep writing. It's just that simple. Thank you for those words, Nija Matory.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Likewise. So for all the aspiring entrepreneurs and authors out there, let's continue to work, let's continue to write, and let's make things happen. Until next week, I'll talk to you. Have a great day.